This scrawny little boy is Hiccup. He looks fragile, as though a gust of wind could blow him over. But the strongest of people often start out as the most ordinary. No one could have predicted that, in just a few years, he would become the world's greatest dragon trainer. This is a world where humans and dragons coexist, but they are constantly at war, fighting for resources to survive. Although Hiccup is the son of the village chief, he is far from being a warrior in terms of strength, and he is nowhere near his peers in terms of combat ability. Instead, he is relegated to the workshop, where he does the mundane work of repairing weapons. In a world where strength determines status, killing a dragon would make anyone a warrior in the Viking tribe. But Hiccup has no way to prove himself with sheer power. He can only try to create dragon-catching tools and hope they will work to capture a dragon. As usual, today dragons have attacked Burke Island, raiding for food. Watching his peers tirelessly put out fires, Hiccup couldn't help but feel envious. So he decided to use his carefully crafted weapon, the dragon blade, to take action. He assembled it, loaded it, aimed, and waited in silence for a dragon to pass by. Suddenly, a dragon's roar echoed in the distance, followed by a burst of flame. Hiccup fired the dragon blade. A dragon's screech echoed through the air, and it seemed like Hiccup had struck a dragon. However, when he told everyone about it, no one believed him. The next day, Hiccup followed the path of the fallen dragon. Behind a dirt hill, he cautiously peered over the edge and, to his astonishment, saw the night fury he had shot yesterday. At that moment, Hiccup couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He stood over the fallen dragon, imagining the praise he would receive from his peers in the future. But, as much as he hated to admit it, a person's nature is hard to change. Hiccup's inherent kindness and cowardice made it difficult for him to even steady the weapon in his hands. The Night Fury, sensing this, gave Hiccup a disdainful look. But Hiccup, desperate for the approval of others, took a deep breath and made up his mind to finish off the Night Fury. The Night Fury, seeing the determination in Hiccup's eyes, closed its eyes and gave up, ready to accept its fate. But just then, the Night Fury suddenly opened its eyes wide. Hiccup, after an intense internal struggle, chose to follow his heart rather than seek his family's approval. He let go of his anger, feeling a sudden relief. He decided to cut the ropes and release the Night Fury. After being freed, the Night Fury pinned Hiccup to the ground, glaring at him with fury and letting out a fierce dragon roar. It then dragged its wounded body into the sky and flew off. Stunned and shaken, Hiccup stood up, his legs unsteady. In life, we face many decisions, and it's rare to be able to disregard others' expectations and follow our true selves. It's a difficult thing to do, but one that can lead to true growth and change. Hiccup made his way to the place where the Night Fury had been set free. From a distance, he could see the creature desperately trying to climb the rocky wall, but no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't quite make it over. Pulling out a piece of paper and a pencil, Hiccup began to sketch the Night Fury, for there were no pictures of this dragon in the dragon manual back in the Viking village. No one had ever observed a Night Fury up close before. As Hiccup drew, he noticed something strange. The dragon was missing one of its tail fins. It was that very missing fin that was preventing the Night Fury from flying properly. Every time it attempted to take off, it would fall heavily back to the ground, its efforts failing again and again. As Hiccup continued watching, he realized that the Night Fury had a particular fondness for fish. Taking a large fish from his pack, Hiccup decided to approach the creature, hoping for a closer encounter. The hungry dragon spotted the fish and instinctively opened its mouth, but then paused, becoming cautious. Hiccup soon realized that the Night Fury had noticed the knife hidden at his side. Once Hiccup tossed the knife aside, the Night Fury relaxed, shedding its wariness and shifting to a much gentler demeanor. The dragon eyed the fish hungrily, stepping slowly toward Hiccup. As Hiccup wondered why the Night Fury didn't seem to have any teeth, the dragon's teeth suddenly shot out, and in the blink of an eye, it snatched the fish right from Hiccup's hand. Once the fish was gone, the Night Fury pushed Hiccup up against a rock. To Hiccup's surprise, the dragon then spat out half of the fish, offering it to him. This, it seemed, was the Night Fury's way of showing goodwill. If Hiccup ate the half fish, he would earn the dragon's approval. Hiccup, though disgusted by the raw fish, reluctantly took a bite. Gradually, their relationship began to thaw. The Night Fury used its flame to warm the ground and lay down on it, while Hiccup couldn't help but feel the urge to touch the creature. This, however, made the Night Fury uncomfortable. They still weren't that familiar with one another. Bored, Hiccup drew patterns in the dirt with a stick. The Night Fury, curious, picked up its own stick and started drawing as well, creating chaotic lines that trapped Hiccup in the middle of them. When Hiccup tried to step over the lines, the Night Fury bared its teeth in protest. But when Hiccup pulled his foot back, the dragon immediately softened again. Back and forth it went, and in time, Hiccup and the Night Fury grew closer. Finally, Hiccup gathered the courage to extend his palm. This time, the Night Fury leaned forward and touched its head to Hiccup's hand. From that moment on, the Night Fury became Hiccup's steadfast companion, growing alongside him in their bond.
Hiccup brought a basket full of plumpfish to visit Toothless. After a day of hunger, Toothless couldn't resist the sight of so much food, and his stomach growled in response. At that moment, Hiccup was holding something special. A tail fin he had painstakingly crafted. Through his previous observations, Hiccup had discovered that Toothless couldn't fly properly because he was missing one of his tail fins. After consulting with the elders and thinking it through, Hiccup had created a custom artificial tail fin that was perfectly sized for Toothless. While Toothless was busy eating, Hiccup carefully attached the new tail fin to the dragon's body. Once Toothless finished the fish, he felt something strange. His tail fin seemed to have grown back. Without hesitation, he spread his wings and launched into the air. Hiccup, however, was panicked. This was his first time flying, and he felt completely unprepared. Toothless, unable to control the new tail fin, lost control mid-flight. They were heading straight for a cliff. In a frantic move, Hiccup adjusted the tail fin, and instantly, Toothless regained control. Excited and thrilled, Hiccup was now experimenting with manual adjustments, rotating the tail fin to match Toothless's movements in the air. It was clear. Toothless and Hiccup were a perfect team, their partnership seamless. But Toothless, believing he could fly on his own now, suddenly decided to fly away from Hiccup. With a sharp turn, he tossed Hiccup into the water. Without the tail fin support, Toothless lost control and crashed into the water himself. After this experience, Hiccup began to refine the tail fin. His first attempt was creating a dragon saddle. He rode on Toothless's back, using ropes to control the tail fin, but the experiment failed. Next, he strapped himself to the saddle, using his legs to control the tail fin, but that didn't work either. Finally, Hiccup installed a semi-automatic foot pedal on the saddle, a system that allowed him to control the tail fin's angle with his feet, just like the clutch on a motorcycle. Hiccup recorded data from every test flight. After several improvements, Toothless was finally able to fly smoothly. Hiccup even created a user manual for the tail fin, and together they tested different flight modes in the air, gliding, spinning, ascending. All of them worked perfectly. They soared over mountains and darted between rocks. Seeing the success of his work, Hiccup raised his arms in triumph, and Toothless, equally excited, released a burst of flame into the sky. Of course, the tail fin was incinerated in the process, and Hiccup ended up covered in soot. But the experiment was a success. Hiccup and Toothless sat on the beach, basking in the satisfaction of their achievement. As they relaxed, a few baby dragons flew by, eyeing the fish around Toothless. Hiccup tossed a fish toward them, and the full-bellied baby dragons began to approach Hiccup, seeking his attention. One of them even crawled under Hiccup's hand and fell asleep. At that moment, Hiccup's belief was proven right once again. Humans and dragons could live in harmony. Hiccup's success with the artificial tail fin was the result of his creative thinking, persistent effort, and a lot of trial and error. If you were in his shoes, could you accept the countless failures on the road to success? Would you keep trying, even after repeated setbacks? Hiccup was not just called the Dragon Master because he tamed Toothless. More importantly, it was because he understood the unique traits of dragons. This deep understanding allowed him to train them effectively, completing tasks without causing harm to the dragons. For instance, when Hiccup fed Toothless fish, he noticed that dragons were afraid of the green death snake. So he used this to his advantage during training, using the snake to scare off the two-headed dragon. During training, Hiccup also realized that Toothless would collapse to the ground when he sniffed the whooping grass, just like how a cat reacts to catnip. He used this to stop the dragons from attacking him. In his playful moments with Toothless, Hiccup discovered that scratching a dragon's neck could render them helpless in battle. So during a training session, when Astrid was about to strike the Stormfly, Hiccup distracted Stormfly by scratching its neck, causing it to collapse and avoid the attack. These feats of successfully handling dragons without using brute strength deeply affected Astrid. She had always been the strongest fighter in their group, the one who completed tasks with unmatched skill. Yet here was Hiccup, small and unassuming, completing these challenges without ever using physical force. It made her feel inadequate and frustrated. Astrid, in a fit of frustration, went into the woods and vented her anger by striking the trees. She was upset just with Hiccup's sudden success. When she saw Hiccup sneaking around, she decided to follow him to see what he was up to. When Hiccup reached the lake, he was startled to see Astrid sitting on a rock nearby. He immediately asked what she was doing there. Astrid, still fuming, didn't respond. Instead, she began to express her anger about how Hiccup had suddenly become so good at training dragons, something she couldn't quite understand. As she vented, Astrid suddenly noticed Toothless. Seeing Hiccup being attacked by a dragon, Astrid instinctively prepared to defend him, fearing Toothless would hurt him. But when she tried to strike Toothless, Hiccup tackled her to the ground to stop her. Dropping Astrid's weapon, Hiccup stood in between Toothless and Astrid, trying to calm both sides. After a moment of introduction and mutual understanding, Astrid still couldn't grasp the idea of humans and dragons living in peace. Taking the opportunity, she tried to run back to the village, But Hiccup, riding Toothless, caught up with her in no time. With Toothless in control, Hiccup swooped down, grabbed Astrid, and gently placed her atop a tree. Hiccup pleaded with her to listen to his explanation, and as Astrid was stuck in the air, she reluctantly agreed. For the first time, Astrid found herself riding on Toothless's back with Hiccup. As the sun set, they soared through the sky. Astrid, overwhelmed by the beauty, slowly lifted her head, opened her eyes, and reached out to touch the clouds. Flying between the setting sun and the impending night, she felt a sense of a romance and awe that she had never experienced before. Clutching Hiccup in that moment, both Astrid and Hiccup began to develop feelings for each other. It became clear to Hiccup, to win Astrid's heart, a man doesn't have to be physically strong, sometimes intelligence and skill matter more. Given Hiccup's recent exceptional performance in training, which earned him the respect and recognition of everyone, his father, Stoic the Vast, the chief of the village, decided to hold a dragon battle tournament. The goal of the competition was for Hiccup to defeat a giant dragon in front of the entire tribe, thus officially becoming a recognized dragon warrior. Hiccup also saw this as an opportunity to prove to everyone that dragons could be tamed and could live peacefully with humans. So Hiccup casually grabbed a few weapons and entered the arena. With a loud explosion, the fire-breathing dragon appeared, its body engulfed in flames. Likely due to being confined for so long, as the dragon calmed down, it slowly entered the arena. What surprised everyone was that Hiccup did not immediately attack the dragon. Instead, he threw down his weapons and shield, attempting to show the dragon he meant no harm. He stretched out his hand in a gesture of peace, just as Stoic, unhappy with Hiccup's actions, struck the railing with his hammer. The loud noise startled the fire-breathing dragon, which then perceived Hiccup as a threat and began to attack him wildly. Now defenseless, Hiccup was forced to flee for his life. From a distance, Toothless seemed to hear Hiccup's cries for help. It quickly jumped out of the valley and raced toward Hiccup. Just as Hiccup was knocked to the ground by the fire-breathing dragon, Toothless arrived in time and breathed fire, cutting through the chains that bound the dragon. The sound of their battle echoed through the smoke-filled air. Although Toothless was missing a tail fin, its superior combat skills forced the fire-breathing dragon to retreat. As the crowd watched in amazement, unsure of why Toothless was protecting Hiccup, Hiccup rushed toward Toothless, shouting for the dragon to escape. Meanwhile, the dragon warriors armed themselves and charged at Toothless, intending to subdue him. On a side note, I don't understand why no one helped Hiccup when he was being attacked by the fire-breathing dragon. Toothless, about to unleash a blast of fire on Stoic, was stopped by Hiccup's loud command. Upon seeing Hiccup, Toothless immediately calmed down, becoming docile again. In that moment, the dragon warriors rushed in and managed to subdue Toothless. Furious, Stoic locked Hiccup away. Stoic believed that dragons had killed many of their people, while Hiccup argued that their people had killed many dragons, and this cycle of violence needed to stop. Father and son were unable to convince each other, and Stoic had no choice but to lock Hiccup in a room to let him cool off.